So happy First Contact Day to everyone who celebrates it, but Star Trek Discovery is finally back for its fifth and final season and had two episode premiere yesterday. But it's been a fairly long break because season 4 finished in early 2022, but the two episode premiere were the episodes Red Directive and Under the Twin Moons, and this was a really interesting two-parter that does, in my opinion, hit the ground running pretty well, setting up what looks to be an exciting season that already feels very different to the first four seasons. They released a teaser right after the first two episodes aired, and there's some really interesting stuff in there. I don't know if I'll make a video on the teaser, but there's some things in there that kind of imply we might be seeing something pretty cool, but I don't necessarily feel like Discovery invents itself or reinvents itself every season. Like some shows I can think of, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or The Leftovers, are shows I point to that really feel like every season is completely different. But I do think there is a huge difference between like season 2 of Discovery and season 3 of Discovery when it comes to tone and vibe, and already season 5 feels very different to what the tone and vibe of seasons 3 and 4 were. But honestly, this definitely didn't feel like a two-part premiere for a final season. Like, not at all, really. But this was kind of to be expected because we've heard that even Sonequa Martin Green had no idea the show was ending until way later. So these episodes were written and filmed with the knowledge that a sixth season was still very possible. We're going to get into some spoiler territory with this review, so if you haven't seen the episodes or you want to watch the episodes and haven't seen them yet, maybe don't go past this. But we already heard that this season would have some interesting connections to the Next Generation in some form. A lot of people, myself included, took this to mean that the Romulan science ship was probably from the 24th century, and they did confirm that pretty quickly in this episode. But honestly, I didn't expect the tie to go much deeper than that until they brought in an old message from a Romulan called Dr. Velik, who was present during Next Generation's 6th season episode, The Chase, and now we're dealing with a universe-spanning mission that includes the progenitors, so that's all really, really cool. This was definitely a very Star Wars move to me, and by that I mean it's taking a background or seemingly insignificant character from a much older project and then expanding on their backstory and bringing them into something newer in a pretty clever way. Like current Star Wars does do this a lot with random original trilogy characters, and I like that they did that here, honestly. This is also cool because The Chase is one of the most important episodes of Next Generation, I would say, in terms of what it implies to the wider Star Trek universe. Like, there has always been theories on if they're related to the changelings from the Gamma Quadrant or the Sphere Builders from Star Trek Enterprise's Delphic Expanse, so to bring them in here is in such a big way and a huge way is really cool. And I like Discovery doing things like this because to me, Next Generation sometimes could drop the ball on how much they would follow up on seemingly hugely important plots, things just in general, and while Deep Space Nine would usually pick up that ball and expand on certain things that they would, with like Thomas Riker or the Maquis, it was awesome to see the Chase and the progenitors expanded here because that was never really followed up on in anything. Also, one thing I want to mention about the Romulan stuff, I loved Velik's 24th century Romulan uniform. That was completely awesome to see in modern Trek. Like, those big blocky 1990s costumes does look really cool. But this does make me wonder why they stuck to the modern Star Trek Picard or J.J. Abrams style look for the Romulan ship, because it looked very dark and slick and clean in a way the 90s Romulan ships didn't really feel like. So it would have been cool to see something more in line with that, but it's whatever. But this wasn't the only cool connection to Next Generation. We also got to see a synth that looked quite similar to Brent Spiner's Data, and then we got the reveal that it's one of Altan Soong's creations, Altan being a Soong that we got to see in Picard a pretty decent bit. We saw a holographic recording of him as recent as Picard's 3rd season, and this is another thing I appreciate about Discovery. We don't see a crazy amount of overlap between the newer Trek stuff, so I really like that we got to see Discovery pretty regularly make references to things from Star Trek Picard. In terms of the actual episode itself, I am a little all over the place in my thoughts. I thought episode 2 was much better than the first. If I could describe my reaction to episode 1, I would probably go with something maybe like unremarkable or a little whatever. I did find myself finding it a little hard to get very into or involved in the episode of Crazy Man. And I do think Discovery does a really good job at introducing new characters at the beginning of most seasons. Like, Raynar here immediately leaves an impact, and I thought he was genuinely a very interesting character and felt like a pretty different Starfleet style captain than we're used to. Some ways he kind of felt like a mix between season 1's Lorca and season 2's Pike in terms of his approach and attitude, so I'm interested to see where we go with him this season. The two new courier or treasure hunter style characters, Mull and Lack, were also really cool. Mull is played by Eve Harlow, who was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Titans and the 100. Then Elias Tuflake is Lack, and he was pretty prevalent in the first season of The Expanse. But both characters seemed really interesting, and I'm hyped to see them more. I hope we get some cool stuff with them going forward. The Quest video game storyline style mission is also kind of fun, and I do like the idea of this being a treasure hunt and chasing the next pieces and trying to solve this big puzzle and seeing where that takes us. That's really exciting. But I also do think we kind of needed this to be something that wasn't universe ending, which it felt like the 24th century messages are implying this will be another universe-ending threat, which that's pretty much what every Star Trek Discovery season has been so far, which we could do without that for one season, I think. I thought the avalanche sequence in the first episode was kind of weird though. I'm not overly into the scene in general, it did feel kind of Star Wars-y, but the reason why I'm kind of just making a point about it in general is because I felt like the pacing and editing in it was really strange just from a Discovery perspective. Like, it's not strange in terms of I've seen other shows do this, but for Discovery this was a very random thing to do. Like, at one point we go into this split screen sequence that has Book, Michael and Rayner all on screen at the same time. Well, this is something that, yes, a ton of shows have done before and it's fine to do. It felt extremely out of place here and really took me out of the scene because it's just such a non-Discovery thing to do. Like, when a show does this, it's usually fine because they'll have done it before and establish a precedent or in a past episode for this style of editing, to showcase this editing and to showcase why they do this. Whereas with Discovery, unless I'm misremembering, I can't remember a single time that they've done any sort of scene or shot or edit like this before. So to me, it just really felt like it came out of nowhere. But it's fine. I guess they just wanted to try and do something a little bit more stylistic and different, so it's not too worth complaining about. I don't know, editing is something I'm really into, so it kind of, when a show does a very different editing style out of nowhere, it always takes me out of it, because I'm like, I've never seen them do anything like that before. Why are they doing that now? The Saru and Michael stuff on the planet in the second episode was pretty exciting and hype when they were trying to fight off the drones. Saru in general was really solid throughout both episodes. I'm rooting for this goofy guy and his marriage. Hopefully that when the show ends, he'll have a nice happy ending. The second episode had a couple scenes I really appreciated though, like the opening scene of the episode with the whole sort of panel arguing with each other over Michael and Rayner's mission in the prior episode was really well acted. It's also just, it felt like a real sort of discussion and a real sort of debate between the characters. And then one of the final scenes of the episode with Rayner and Michael talking about Discovery and watching Discovery and talking about her being a beautiful old ship and how they don't really make ships like it anymore was really good as well. I just think in general, Michael and Rayner's dynamic is going to be my favorite part of the season, and I think that's the thing I'm already most excited for. But yeah, in general, I felt like the first two episodes did set up the season pretty well. Definitely could have been stronger, but this is just kind of Discovery style, I think. Like, normally, outside of season 2, which season 2, I think, had an incredibly strong premiere. But outside of season 2, I think every single Star Trek Discovery season starts kind of weak and gets very strong towards the end. So I'm hoping season 5 will be the same, because like I'm excited to see where we go, but it's also just the tiniest bit worrying if they will wrap up the show well, knowing that this final season was kind of pushed on them and not really their decision. But we'll see. I can't guarantee there'll be Discovery reviews weekly or anything. It'll probably depend how much I'm into an episode or how much I have to say on it. But have you watched Discovery's first 2 episodes yet? Are you planning on watching them? Did you like them? Hate them? Let me know if you like this video or want to see more videos like this. Maybe hit subscribe and like and share the video with someone who might enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching. Happy First Contact Day, and I hope you had an amazing day.